we'll try and go out of bounds.
Okay, well, so my name is Judah McNeil, and I'm sitting here virtually with Jonathan Cannone, a good friend of my brother's and becoming a good friend of mine, and just trying to wrap my head around this idea of the Jubilee Project, what is now called the Jubilee Underground. And there's various names and what have you, but we just wanted to get started somewhere talking about stuff. And so I would like to throw it to you, Jonathan, like in a way that, let's put you in the big one, so that I'm just going to ask you questions, and sometimes I'm just going to let you talk and talk and talk and talk. Does that sound good?
Sounds good.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
good at that.
well, so my first question is, what a major word that keeps coming up when I'm talking to you specifically is the idea of mycelium. And I know that it has somewhat to do with your love of mushrooms, but I feel like it's it's much deeper. I use that word as a double entendre. That it's a deeper meaning to it. And correct me if I'm wrong, or elaborate too. It has to do with excitement about the kingdom of God being able to be spread and being able to thrive in the same way that mycelium does, but in a very earthy way that's hard to see, hard to get rid of, but very pervasive.
Yeah. I think a lot of it's a human tendency, but specifically Western civilization. Basically, if it's not measurable, it doesn't exist. Uh, as part of the reason why, if it's in the jungles or the mountains, or when an empire goes up against the indigenous um, guerrilla forces, you're on their home turf. They think differently. Um, they're not all centralized, and there isn't like a head you can chop off. So it's just running around putting out little fires, and um, it's kind of a weakness of Eurocentric mentality in general that we like everything organized and out front and clear cut, and nature doesn't work that way, and spirit doesn't work that way. So I guess my love of nature and my love of spirit um, got me excited about the things that we don't understand, the things we can't see, and the things we can't measure, that hold power. There's a level of reality that's that just because we can't see it or measure it doesn't mean it's not real. In fact, it might be more real than what we're paying attention to. And on that level, um, it has its own language, its own rules, its own ways of doing things, and you just get little glimpses at it here and there. And then when you realize that the glimpses you've been seeing are connected, um, you start trying to establish patterns and giving it a name, but it eludes you. You can't you can't really put your finger on it, because where the life is coming from is underground. But what is underground is a whole lot bigger and more vibrant and more powerful than we can define. So yeah, that's the way mycelium works, and that's so I use it as kind of a parable, because I'm seeing a lot of new and exciting things happening on Earth. It's really easy to get sucked into what's wrong um, and how fast things are disintegrating, and a whole lot of narratives are basically primarily focused on what's going wrong. And I just wanted to mostly focus on not just solutions like we're going to figure this out and we're going to get it right, but prayerfully ask what's being done and how can I be a part of it.
I love that. I really love that because it reminds me, and forgive me for my trite connection, my earth licking connection to movies and stuff, but it reminds me of Star Wars The Force, except much less esoteric and transcendent and much more earthy, which that really resonates with me. The
Yeah.
kind of force that isn't like woo, but more mushrooms.
If full disclosure, I don't really have a sky god paradigm. Um, I mean, I can on occasion think of, like the idea of above
Mm,
as like a higher plane of existence, maybe, or like better than what we have. But
mm,
I think like the direction that I head for connection with the divine
mm.
is actually like down and like in it's like micro. It's within, definitely, with like the inner divine and the all pervasive, all present divine. So you're looking at it all the time. It's everywhere all the time, and we're not seeing it clearly. We're just looking at we're thinking of it as a just material, and the life that connects them all is a mystery to us. We can't really empirically get at it, so we pretty much dismiss it as irrelevant.
I think that's huge. The fact that what we don't understand, we ignore. And I think that a big revelation I had a couple years ago was brought to me primarily from my brother-in-law, um, Joe Brooks. He was talking about ether and the substance that scientists have no idea what it is. That which, well, he specifically talked about that which is between atoms and that which holds everything together.
Oh yeah,
And
they know it's there. They have to include it in all their equations, like
but
that thing.
it was a huge revelation for me that it's like that there's something in everything that tells it what to be. And guess what? That's God.
Yeah,
God is holding us, literally holding us together at every it all the time. He's holding life together all the time. I mean,
yeah.
like on a literal, like you can, like, as you're saying, and I interrupted you. I'm sorry, but
No, no.
scientists know it's there. He's there. I think that's amazing, and to think about it in terms of the Earth, because I can get a little too spacey in thinking about that. The ether, inner space. Uh,
Yeah,
but I love the earthiness that just talking to you today and maybe a little bit before has brought to it. I do love the mushroom aspect because mushrooms can seem so gumpy or dirty, not dirty, but like it's not dirt and it's not like a vegetable. You think of vegetables as real righteous. Since I think of vegetables as righteous, dirt as and it's somewhere in between.
yeah. I have a tendency to offer my guests as like a form of hospitality these teas that I make out of things that I got off of trees and out of the dirt.
Hmm.
And it's like, this is like literally the best thing you can possibly put in your body. Like, it's the most powerful, life supporting, um, like healing, empowering, life giving, cancer fighting, like it'll completely rejuvenate your organs, your brain,
Hmm.
your circulation, your immune system. Like, you've got to try this. And they just go like, it tastes like bark. It's like, well, that's where I got it from, was bark. I'm like, I I can't imagine improving it by adding, like flavors and something that would make it taste more like what you can get at any 7-Eleven. It's just like, this is
processed
real.
processed sugar. Dump that in
Yeah.
there. Oh, way to ruin it. Yeah.
It's like, reality doesn't taste like, mega sour warheads. It tastes like bark, so get over it.
Mm.
Um,
Now
but like,
that
we're superficially judging things. Like,
say more about that. Reality tastes more like bark than candy.
yeah, like, I am also a very like anti-myth of progress kind of guy.
Hmm.
Um, and most of the things that we consider inevitably, like, I wouldn't imagine living any other way, have arisen in the last 50 to 100 years. Like, the way that we eat and the way that we work and the way that we, uh, commute and transportation, communications really, like, in the last decade. Um, and we just are like, well, this is reality now. And it's like, no, if you want to think in terms of the human species as a whole, what they're adapted to, like, you're talking about millennia and millennia and millennia of getting your food from the dirt, and like having your meat source walking around on four or two legs around you all the time. Um, that's what human beings, long term, what human beings are adapted to. And we have forgotten what plants match our, what plants will bring healing to our bodies. And I mean, it's amazing to me that there's people who live on the same property as several different organisms that were created for their healing, and say, did you know that your entire woods is full of, turkey tail mushrooms? They're like, what's turkey tail mushrooms? It's like, it's on every tree in your woods.
Wow.
Um, we've just forgotten more than I think we'll ever remember. So, and this idea of order, like what's pleasing to the eye, like the ergonomics of designing something, um, we like grids,
Hmm.
and it makes sense. I'm starting to realize how it makes sense. Um, it hurts my head to look at square lines. Like, if you look at like how a city's laid out in Iowa or whatever, they're all just 90-degree angles to each other. But if you're gonna move a tractor through a field and have all of the metal implements go exactly in between all the plants without hurting the plants, it's good to have them in a straight line, exactly spaced apart from each other, so that it's efficient. But if you look at, and people will quote, God is a God of order. And I'm like, I don't think that word means what you think it means. That's all. I don't disagree with you. It's like, if you look at order, like, the one living thing in the center is the mother, and there's a ring around her, of her children, and then her grandchildren are in a ring around there, and then it gets fuzzy from there. It's like, then it's just popping up randomly all over the place.
Hmm.
That's order. You just don't like it because you can't control it. It's not your kind of order, but it doesn't mean it's not order.
Hmm. Yeah, uniform order is something that is uniform and patterned may have a kind of order, but that doesn't mean it is order quintessentially.
Right. It's an order, but
Hmm.
but yeah, when people see something all jumbled and random, they're like, well, that's disorderly. It's like, well, no, you didn't order it, but it is ordered. Um, but anyway, what I'm seeing happen is people um realizing something's not working, or we've gone too far, or maybe we are not as smart as we think we are, and we overplayed our hand. And then it's easy to start getting into maybe conspiracy theory territory, like whose fault is this?
Hmm.
Like, who planned this insanity? Who made the world the way that it is? Who's poisoning our bodies and our earth, and um who made the problems, because something's wrong. And it's like, well, probably all of us,
Hmm.
all together, and we're just realizing we're sick. And so then there's like different narratives and different solutions, different life choices that people are making. But I think there's a lot of good things going on because of it. Like this questioning, do we want to be here?
Hmm.
Like, do we want to be this dependent on in industrial, and like global supply lines? When things go a little off, it's like people realize, like, my goodness, my grocery stores could be empty quick, or um
Or I didn't realize how dependent on toilet paper I am.
yeah. What am I going to wipe myself with when there isn't any toilet paper? And then so somebody says, like, well, what are our alternatives? So
Hmm.
people are starting to get creative with their alternatives, and I like it. It needed to happen a long time ago. And I think it would be good for forward thinking, creative thinking, outside the box thinking people who are excited about life to know what's going on with each other and learn from each other. Um, and to a certain extent, we're not all going to be on the same page about everything. Some of it's just aesthetics, and some of it's straight up, you know, essential differences. But it's like, even though I don't, use the same words you do, like for instance, somebody might be all about climate change, and they're like, we need to come up with creative solutions for reducing carbon emissions, and that involves staying local, having a local supply line, and growing a lot of things. And somebody else could say, well, I like local stuff and I like growing things, but I'm not really into climate change. That's not
Hmm.
my narrative. But we can, since we both like growing things and local solutions, then we can work together. And somebody else might say, this is the kingdom of God. We need to be working on bringing the kingdom of God to earth. And um the Jesus Christ is Lord. And somebody else would be like, I don't touch religion with a 10-foot stick, but what what does it look like? Well, it looks like sharing with each other and not amassing wealth, and kind of getting over our obsession with hard and fast property lines. Like, we could learn how to share resources and tools and knowledge and property, and somebody would be like, that's what I'm talking about. Like, I'm not really into the whole God thing, but I want to learn how to share, you know? So I think different people in different camps, or from different backgrounds, or with different philosophies or different narratives, can still see what's going on in another community or on another project and say, I like what they're doing there. And that, people have skills that I don't have. I was talking with my wife today about I say, like, how do you know that a business is worth starting in the first place? Like, how are you reasonably sure that putting $120,000 and a year of your life, so hard work, is going to pay you back, and it's not just going to be a waste of time and money? And people say, well, you have to do your market research. And I'm like, what is that? I still don't know.
Yeah.
I'm sure there is some place where somebody is teaching people what market research is and how to do it. But it's like, it feels like there's a secret club that I'm not a part of that knows how to do this kind of stuff. So, like, I could say I really, really, really know how to, like, I really know how to incorporate water into my permaculture system. Like, I love water. I know how to create pockets of it, and like terraform a whole property to catch water, and then like natural irrigation systems that go all through, and water all your plants. And I want to, um and then everybody else in town's like, who cares that you're a nerd about water? You know how to catch rainwater and make it water plants. Whoop-de-doo. Can I make a bunch of money off it? No, it's just my weird hobby. You know, but somewhere else, somebody else might be wondering how to do that.
Yeah.
And they don't know anything about it, but they do know how to, they're like really good at like business sense, that the guy who just knows how to make water features on your permaculture design doesn't have any clue how to monetize it, and they could just learn from each other.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's the I feel like that's a lot of the, well, I don't know. It seems like that's a lot of the underground. I guess my second question was going to be to talk a little bit more about the Jubilee, but I believe that that's also part of the Jubilee part, being able to share in each other's blessings, right? Or
Absolutely.
well, so talk more about the Jubilee. Why did you guys want to call it, or why did you, or you and Paul, or whoever want to call it the Jubilee Project or Jubilee Underground? Where did the Jubilee come from?
It just occurred to me just now, and it never has before. I don't think it has. But another way of describing Jubilee is reset. And like, whenever people talk about the Great Reset, what I hear is more slavery. But what the Jubilee was to start over from scratch without debt. And if somebody had gotten themselves so in debt that they had to become an indentured servant to pay off their debt, wherever they were in the process, they could have been an indentured servant for 40 years or for 4 years, but on Jubilee year they were set free, and the debt was wrote off. And it's also a way of making sure that there wasn't a permanent underclass. This is in the Hebrew tradition, of course. Um, there isn't just a completely disenfranchised, permanently impoverished underclass that's forced to slavery or begging to survive.
Well, so you said earlier that you wanted to create a space, or part of this idea was creating a space where it stuck out to me, where no one is amassing wealth. So is Jubilee just a conceptual nomiker, or like a moniker, or a title, or is it or is it a practical aspect of the initiative? Like, is there a reset that goes? Is there a reset built into the idea or system?
Well, I believe that it's inevitable that the big Jubilee, the kingdom of God in its fullness, is inevitable, and anybody that refuses to participate in it is going to miss out mostly on the blessing. But also, it's kind of, it's kind of like a rule. Like, you can either voluntarily participate in it and reap a blessing, or you can participate in it kicking and screaming. But it's going to happen. Like, the current way of life is not sustainable. So I'm at 100% talking about voluntary sharing. Like, seizing and redistributing is not anything I'm interested in. But if somebody is voluntarily giving without thinking, like, is this an investment that's going to improve my station? Yes, but like, we'll talk about that way down the road. Like, right now, no, you're just literally giving. You're voluntarily giving. If you have some spiritual understanding of the way that Christ calls us to be, that's awesome. But if you don't, just like take it on faith that it will come back to you somehow. But the main way that people are enslaved at this point is needing to have the resources to start out, living their dream. And everybody has this idea that well, not everybody. All right. So I'm talking about a set of people who want to provide for their family, be somewhat independent, self-sufficient, and grow good food for their family, or have some kind of business that they run from home, and have some freedom, and raise their family the way they think is best to raise their family. And they get this idea probably from like the Homestead Act in the 1800s or something, that there's 40 acres and a mule with their name on it. All they have to do is go there and set up shop, and with a lot of elbow grease, create a little kingdom for their family. And it's like, there is no such thing anymore. Like, there's no such thing as just free land being given away. And of course, they had to get rid of a bunch of people that lived there in order to do that. But
Right.
But so what people like, I have, like, this little place looks like a good place to raise my family. Let's get $250,000 or $500,000 or $750,000 in debt to start with. Well, you can't get off that treadmill. So then I have a whole lot of friends who are killing themselves living in two worlds. They're trying to be Pa Ingalls, and they have to go to work 40 to 70 hours a week to pay the mortgage. And it ends up isolating you from everybody.
Well, I mean, just so I'm clear, Pa Ingalls worked more than 40 hours a week.
Oh,
You're
yeah.
talking about like in the corporate world or something.
Yeah, well, selling your hours for Federal Reserve notes.
Selling. Okay, I think that's more specific. That's good. They are trying to be Pa Ingalls and then selling 40 to 50 hours a week to the man. Or
Yeah,
what would you say? What do you call the man? Just sounds so hippie. What would you? Because you've said some words. The collective. What is that? Is that what we're talking about? The broader collective, the global collective.
Well, let's say, like, when I say collective, I mean, like, if your kids are in school with most of the other kids in your community.
Mm.
And you're like reliant on trash pickup, you're reliant on, you know, water being brought to you and your sewage being taken away from you, and you're providing a service to, I don't know, like some kind of communication devices, or like if you're in manufacturing, like it's all together. It's one thing working together. Like um, if you're selling cars or um, working on water distribution, waste distribution, trash collection, a public school teacher, you're part of the makeup of the nation or your town, however big or little you want to look at it. And we're all working together. But when we say we, is that your we? You know,
Mm.
um, is that how we're supplying each other's needs?
Mm.
Um, are you in it together so that like you're, and some people are very happy there, and that's fine. I'm not judging, but I think a lot of people are saying, "What have we done?"
Mm. Mm.
Um, especially when you look at the influence of like advertising and PR of major corporations that are providing, just say, food and drink. Like like it takes a lot of money to hire a lobbyist to influence lawmakers to keep Mountain Dew as something that can be bought with food stamps.
Mm.
And we're like, do you really want to be buying people Mountain Dew with taxpayer money
Yeah.
and contributing to poor health, and say, this is how we are all pitching in together and helping people and sharing? And I hear that a lot. There's a lot of people that are like that. Like, you don't like paying taxes? Or where do you think it goes to? It's to help people.
Mm.
I was like, well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, mostly goes to like finding ice on Mars and bombing brown people in the Middle East. But even the parts that like help people, it's like, do people really need Dr. Pepper? Or could, like, have they just forgotten what their great grandma knew how to do, and that's to like know what real food was and how to produce it yourself.
Right.
So yeah, I do not want to obsess on the problems with the collective, you know,
Yeah. But I think no,
mainstream.
but I think it's helpful for me to know what these terms mean to you and
Right.
what they could mean to me. And so that's why I asked. And I agree. I don't think it's helpful to separate on the darkness, right? But let's
Right.
reach for the light.
Because one, there's a whole bunch of people that are just going to say you're a nutcase, and they do. I like it here. I like the way things are going. It's taken us, you know, thousands of years of evolution to get to this point, and we're doing the best we can. So instead of just peeing all over all of our human progress, you know, how about you learn how to pitch in?
Mm.
And then among the people who are like, no, this is fundamentally broken and there's got to be a way out. If you just sit around and drink tea and bitch about the world, you're never going to get anything else. So yeah, I want to be positive and solution focused, because whatever is of life is going to last, and there's nothing you can do about it. And whatever's not of life is not going to last, and there's nothing you can do about it. So no sense in like trying to tear things down, or
I
or
agree.
just whine. I don't want this to be a whining fest. But a lot of people are coming to the conclusion that what we've built in America has major problems, and we need to kind of bow out a little bit and and rethink the whole thing.
And
And then it's
hence,
like, well, how much of the wheel do you want to invent? Like when you get off of work, let's say you're just like you drive a Budweiser truck and you go around to all the convenience stores and deliver beer, and then you come home and you give your wife and kids a hug, and then you're going to go out and start like what, carding wool and spinning it so you can, make your own socks. Like how crazy are we going to go? Like
hmm,
how much of the wheel do you need to reinvent to be happy? Um and and then once you start building back up, you're like, well, we're not going to revert back to the 1700s. So
hmm,
like let's say we're going to do some of the things that our ancestors used to do, and then we'll get on YouTube and see how somebody else is doing something cool, and we'll like buy their product because I believe in what they're doing. It's more sustainable, or they're very creative, or we can, and then it's like, well, you've just created an alternative market. You're going for small creators instead of large creators. You're going for individuals and small communities instead of corporations. But you've basically just created a alternative like niche for um, people who want something different than what you can get at Walmart. But
okay, yeah.
long story short, um, I think there should be a place where people can meet each other and say, "What's going on in your world? Um, why are you like not just what are you doing? Because you got to be doing something. You can't just be. It's not all hypothetical. If you're doing something cool, we want to see what you're doing, and we also want to know why you're doing it. And I might not, entirely understand your why. It might
Hmm.
be different than my why, but let's hear each other out.
Well, and so as I understand it, um, I don't want to I don't want to take too much time on this preliminary, or what I call the primordial attempt at, or first step at figuring this out for me. Figuring it out. Um, Let me can I kind of say what I'm getting out of this, and you correct me if I'm wrong or expand on it.
Sure.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that the Jubilee Underground is born out of an excitement about life that is happening already.
Oh yeah.
The kingdom that is exploding, the kingdom that is um, terraforming in some ways, whether we see it or not, but that we're seeing glimpses of it, and we want to engage with it. We want to engage in the work of the kingdom, and you see that, and I think both of us do. We see that in terms of practical, earthy, hands-on, um, and free endeavors, and that
Alternative solutions.
alternative solutions that have a lot to do with small communities, local communities, and shared abilities, and that it's based on the principle that of the Jubilee. It's like what everybody's saying, the Great Reset is missing out on the glorious aspect of God's kingdom resetting things. Uh, so we're acknowledging the Jubilee, but in a sort of small, small helpful steps,
Yeah.
right, towards an eventual fulfillment of the kingdom. Is that? Can you elaborate on? Can you fill in any gaps you heard, or correct anything that I said that is not quite right?
No, that's good. Even if it's just a celebration of the fact that everything isn't automated yet, like
Mm,
everything isn't under the thumb of the uh mega corporations yet.
Okay.
And but instead of everybody feels like they're the weirdo in their town in this space. Like
Yeah.
nobody knows what I'm talking about. Nobody wants to do what I'm doing. People think I'm quite eccentric. And so like, there's one other guy that we kind of like the same thing, but he, votes different than I do or goes to a different church than I do. But we've basically made a friendship because we like some of the same because we're both growing stuff.
Yeah.
But um but when you realize that all over the world there's people who feel the same way, they feel a little bit outcast in their town, a little bit eccentric. They're peculiar people. And then you
Mm.
realize, well, how come everywhere you go, you find these little pockets of peculiar people that don't feel like they belong, that are looking for something else? What even gave them the idea to look for something else?
Mm.
Um, and if you can see that, like, all right, we can see this really spread out network of people who are trying to live by the light they see, which might be a little bit different than the people around them, but they're actually kind of seeing some of the same things and finding some of the same ways of doing things, but they're spread out. So how'd they all get the same idea at the same time? And that's the exciting part. It's a celebration of the fact that there's an unseen connecting force,
Mm.
and this is just popping up. You know,
Yeah.
we're seeing um little sprouts poking through. Like, hey, how'd you get all the way over there? Well, that means that the mother, oh sorry, the mother organism must be all the way on, like, between you and me, and all throughout, all the ground, under the ground, between us. And that's exciting. That means we're part of something bigger than ourselves.
Yeah.
So that it's celebrating the connection,
Mm.
um and just giving people a sense that they're not alone, and that um maybe we've been working together even though we haven't met each other yet.
Mm.
But things like when you have a think tank organism talking about you know oh, sustainability and um say basically saving the earth from human beings, and it's like, this sounds really good, but then when you get to the bottom of it, um you know like, we're going to make changes, big changes, and you realize it's just the new boss, same as the old boss. Like, it's just another system of control with human beings, trying, that are sure that this time we've got it right. Like, all the other times we didn't have it figured out, but this time we've got it figured out. And it's like, do we never learn?
Well,
Um,
but on a practical basis, this initiative, and I think it is initiative, right? I don't really know what an initiative is, but to me, it is just something that we're doing, right? It's a way to just kind of name, give, give energy to something that we're doing. And it's particularly you and Paul have really worked out, my brother Paul, um, some of these ideas. But on a practical basis, it has a lot to do with it. So I'm just help me as I'm trying to conceptualize it. It has a lot to do with creativity, tools, and communication that is not necessarily old school, right? Like doing this kind of thing is just as much a part. It's not necessarily Luddite.
no,
Uh,
no.
it might even be. But the key is that it is a sharing thing, whether we're using technology, high technology or low technology. It's a sharing and propagating of what? Of cooperation, or how would you finish that? What are we using these tools, this creativity, this communication? What are we using it for?
Well, the one thing I wrote down that I think is the best thing I've wrote down so far is it's cultivating resilient systems of life. And one of the things that you said that really is probably the most important thing is it is happening. It's already happening. We just want to be a part of it. And that's where the cultivation comes into play. Like
Mm-hmm.
it's like taking care of something and urging it on,
Curating
feeding
in a
it,
way, right?
watering it.
Yeah, curating like gardeners in a way.
Yeah, but it's encouraging it to grow, or almost be like being a midwife, like the
Mhm.
baby's going to come, you're just going to help it out. um it's not at all like a creation that I feel like I have any control over. I don't even, I don't entirely understand what is going on, but I'm excited whenever I see it. I'm like, that's it, that's exciting. Let's go explore that a little deeper because something exciting is happening.
Well,
But
cool.
in the resilient, are you still there?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
All right. Yeah, your camera's a little froze.
Oh,
um Hang on.
it's me. It's my internet.
Okay. um
Am I back?
yeah, I have to plug in the power here.
Oh, okay.
um Resilient systems of life is that, yeah, there is a lot that threatens life, I would say.
Mm,
um like in the last century, like 95 or something like that, about 95% of genetic variance in seeds has been extinguished. Well, another way of saying that is that we have 5% of the varieties of seed for like farming, gardening, whatever, that we had 100 years ago, and that
wow,
was not an accident.
that's scary.
um yeah, and so you could just sit there and freak out about that, like you could see like clouds of burning vinyl chloride over Ohio, and just freak out about it. And now you could pretty much put yourself into a state of constant PTSD 24/7. I could feed it to you nonstop to keep your heart rate up. If you like adrenaline, like all day, every day, there's something to say like, oh no, that's an irreplaceable resource. You're never going to fix that, like that's never coming back. We lost it, it's gone, and it's never coming back. And just weep and wail and mourn, and there's a place for that. There's a place for mourning it.
Mm,
um but then it's like, what's the use of me trying so hard to take care of a couple of acres of land and do it responsibly and raise my children to be gentle and loving and sharing, and um ride a bicycle instead of driving an SUV or whatever you're going to do, where it's like look, compared to like what the US military wastes, I'm never going to catch up.
mm,
And all it's going to take is one oops a daisy and everything I've worked for is gone. But the resilience of life is that it's not going to be snuffed out. There's a new creation, there is a resurrection, and it's going to be here on the other side.
yeah.
like we're not going to be extinguished. Um,
Mm.
we're probably doing a whole lot more damage to ourselves, each other, and the earth than we even know we are because we don't like to look at it. But um, if we can say, I want there to be life, and when I find it, I'm going to celebrate it, I'm going to save it, I'm going to plant it again, I'm going to spread it, I'm going to give it to others, I'm going to show them how to take care of life.
Mm.
Um, Friday, I went and visited some friends who have they have 3 kids about our kids' age, and we have 4. So there's 7 of them running around. And the mother was just talking to us about her parenting style. And it's basically like, it blew my mind how completely free of control. And that's scary. It just like, it feels like your kids are really chaotic and you need to get them in line all the time. And she basically just is working really hard on saying they are free human beings who are going to be a whole other person from me. And
Mm.
just because I want them to do something doesn't mean that's what they need. And like providing them with direction, like she's still, you can still teach somebody, you can still disciple somebody, but there is no such thing as like my way or the highway, power struggles necessary. And I'm like, it called me to question a lot of my mentalities. I'm like, well, I believe in non-coercion, you know, but like for child rearing too, and I don't know, that's a
Mm.
bunny trail, but
Mm.
I always pay attention to when people are doing things in a creative way that encourages life to flourish.
Mm.
Like, who knows if 50% of our problems are the way we've been raising children generation after generation for 1,000 years, and we're about to crest this new horizon of letting go and
Mm.
realizing that works better. I don't know. I'm willing to check it out.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that. And that's the Jubilee, is not necessarily resetting it for people, but acknowledging that in a lot of ways it reminds me, it's a microcosm of the of, being reborn, right? Like it's acknowledging a rebirth, acknowledging life amidst a world of depressing and life killing deception and deceivingly delicious things that are going on,
Yeah,
things that are crushing souls,
it's enslaving.
enslaving. Yeah.
So a big part of the Jubilee is setting people free, and almost immediately people ask me, like, setting free from what?
Yeah.
And it's like whatever it is they are enslaved to.
Yeah.
you know
A friend of mine, a podcast we used to have, the surfing violinist, we deemed that things that we're trying to get free from, we called it the Christmas, what was it, the can't remember it now, but it was like the Christmas Cathedral, subtitled California, college, all these C words of things that like feed into this Christmas cathedral of just dripping consumerism, and that we go and bow to, but that is ever pervading our lives. And so maybe the underground, maybe Jubilee Underground is acknowledging that there is a different thing that is pervading, and that we don't just have to fight against the Christmas cathedral, but believe in the moss-like pervasion of life and the kingdom of God ultimately.
Yeah, the cathedral's going to topple itself. It doesn't need help.
That's true.
It's not. It's not going to make it. So I
Amen.
don't have to help it. Collapse. It's just inevitable. And then um the new world is inevitable,
Mhm.
and it operates by different principles, and there's different practices. You know, here I'll get a little controversial. Um, and personal,
Okay.
but I'm the only person I know who left the church in my early 20s and just went everywhere else, just checking out the rest of the world that I hadn't gotten familiarized with yet. And then about 10 years later, I found myself back sitting in a pew facing a pulpit listening to a preacher. And I joined, I married in. I bring my kids there every week. And everybody who knew me in the interim, between the ages like 21 and 31 is like, what happened to you? Um, what are you doing back in church? And I'm like I found the nugget that was worth keeping. And I'm not gonna let it go. It's Jesus, you know. Like I lost everything else. I kept Jesus. I came back to Jesus, and this is where Jesus people are, and I'm gonna be with them and love it. Do I love everything? No, but this is where Jesus people are. So that blew a lot of people's minds, blew my mind. But I don't know. I either know people who like decided they're gonna stay for life and they never left, or they left and never came back. It's kind of rare to come back. But now I'm finding all these, 20, like 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 year olds deconstructing hardcore, like tail spinning, and they're just like, you can see them just gasping for air, really angry, really hurt. They're probably some of the smarter kids, like, hey, this doesn't make sense. Let me ask you a really hard question about, like, you know, maybe it's just like, how can the God of the Old Testament that wanted everybody to be, destroyed be the same guy as Jesus who wants to love everybody? And somebody's just like, like, sit down, shut up. We don't ask questions like that. And they just get all upset and they end up leaving. And then they end up becoming atheists and nihilists and Satanists or whatever. And the church is like, see, they were no good. And I'm like, no, I want to talk to you like for a long time about everything. And you can't say anything that won't scare me. Go for it. Let's like ask, do your worst. Like you can be mad, you can be sad, you can be philosophical. You tell me what you're thinking. I want to hear it. And I'm coming to the conclusion that the church as an institution isn't going to survive. It's
That's the controversial part right there, huh?
yeah.
Mm.
The direction humanity is heading is not in a church building. And a lot of people are going to be really sad about that, but I think it's fine. I think that something better is in the future. Like when Jesus claims his bride without blemish or without spot, it's going to be after this purification process whereby all of the chaff was burnt up. Um, and that includes anything that human beings made that isn't, a cheap imitation of what God offers, or anything that we've set up that doesn't offer his grace and work towards reconciling all things to himself and making Jesus Lord of all. So if it empowers human beings, but it doesn't declare Jesus as Lord, or um, basically anything that is great, 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 great grandchild of the Holy Roman Empire, if you really want my opinion, is going to have to go in order for God to be all in all. And that's good news. I can't wait to see what that's going to be like.
Yeah.
And if we're attached to our systems to the point where we just can't envision a future where God is all in all and Jesus is Lord, sorry, you're gonna have to do some. You're gonna have to do some saying goodbye.
Yeah.
Whether that's whether that's 500 years in the future or not, I don't know. Could be tomorrow. I don't know. But we're going to
But
have to let go of our attachment to our being in control of this
and it seems to me, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jubilee Underground has to do with taking small steps with that in mind, right?
thing.
It's like reminding each other of these principles that Jesus will be Lord, and that these mechanisms of ours will not be there, and that
Yeah, that's
and
the
thinking about
end.
what we need to do about it today in small steps, small important steps, right?
Yeah, and you can't if you're not going to be in control of everything, then you got to start with questions, and be open and ready for change. You can't start with answers and doctrines and say like,
Yeah.
I'm unflinchingly going to apply this to every area of not just my life but your life too,
Mm.
because this is what I've decided it's going to be. You're looking for something. You're but on the other hand, Jesus said it's at hand, it's close by, like it's accessible. You just reach out and touch it. It's with you.
Mm.
It's within you. It's not, even though it's unseen, it's not far away.
Wow. Well, that's good. I think that's a good start for helping me and others understand what we're doing. And another thing that Jubilee Underground is going to be, in a more practical sense, is a website where there's going to be a lot more, or we can post these discussions, and maybe even, well, I was hoping that maybe some of the things that you have written and other people have written, um, that goes more in depth. Right? Was that something that we want to do?
Yeah, definitely. And then when I'd love just to be a hub where people could come and say, what else is going on out there, and um have links to other people's projects, other people's works,
Yeah.
other conversations that are happening, and hopefully it's just like the intersection where you can go down all the different rabbit holes from there, but you can return to the hub to find different streams.
I love it.
And
Well,
I'm
yeah.
finding we're not the only ones to have this idea. There's a lot of this going on, and I like it.
I yeah, I would say if you were the only one talking about it, then there would I would kind of be like, is this something going on? The fact that other people are coming up with the same ideas, like you're saying, it's like the invention of electricity, or what did you say?
The radio.
The
It was like,
radio, right? It's like several people had the same idea at the same time because it was a
right.
breaking forth of truth and invention that, of course, it's like resonating in our lives, and people are just paying attention.
Its time had come. It was inevitable. It was going to be a thing.
Yeah.
It's just like um a couple people picked up on it at the same time. I like
Mm.
That's how you know something really good's happening. So,
Amen. Okay, well, thanks, Jonathan, and let's keep talking about it.
Sounds good. I really appreciate the conversation.
Oh, me too, man. This has been really interesting, and I hope that this is the first of many conversations, not just me and you, but that we incorporate other people, and that we can make meaningful and practical steps towards making the Jubilee project more than just an idea, but the Jubilee Underground a actual work, a thing that is working.
Yeah, I think it would be nice to have gatherings like meet and greets, but also I love the idea of the old barn raisings, you know?
Mm,
Like there's a project so big, there's no way any three people could do it in a year. It's
yeah,
just, but you get enough people together and they say just for today at least, we're gonna be a we and we're gonna knock this thing out.
I love it.
And then the next day there's a barn where there was not a barn before. Like,
Yes,
it's a powerful thing.
that could even be one of the first things we do is like build a barn, but like instead of it, well, it'd be like a building for gathering, for more gathering people together for this sort of
At least a pavilion.
thing. Yeah. I don't know how many people would need for a pavilion though. All right, Jonathan. Well, and to anybody who's tuning in, thanks for tuning in, and appreciate you, Jonathan. And we'll talk to
Yeah,
you soon.
same here. Peace.
Peace.